everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today I'm going to be doing my wrap-up for the Recommendations Readathon, which I read along with Amanda Center. I will link her channel up in the cards. I will also link a little bit further down the road, because I don't want to overlap, the TBR that I had for the Recommendations Readathon. I read 4 out of 6. I read 4 out of 6 books, but I put 2 extra in that I wasn't expecting to read. Yes, that's exactly how it went. And I was expecting to be able to keep up with everything that I had put on the TBR, even with the extras, but it just ended up that I wasn't able to read as much as I wanted to, which is kind of a bummer. No one's fault, it just happened that way. It was kind of a hectic few weeks. This week in particular, it was a little bit out of my comfort zone, but it's fine. Specifically, my boyfriend got sick and he was home for 2 weeks, and so it was not that I was super busy and couldn't read. It was just there was a lot happening in the space that I'm in, because we're in a 2-room apartment, and there's no separation from where I am to the room with the TV, and I can read with the TV on, just not as quickly. So he was playing video games the whole week that I was supposed to be doing the readathon, so I just only got 6 books done, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, but it's totally fine. So this is the books that I read. They are in order of least to most enjoyed. The first one is the one I enjoyed least, as in not really at all. Everything else was decent and I'm happy with, and there were a couple of wins. So, the first one that I have is the first book of Calamity Leak by Paula Lipchotwitz. This one, I would say, was marketed as a cult book, which I always have very important moments in cult books that I really hope to see, and a lot of specific things to happen in cult books that I really want to see. Like there's things that I want to see hit for plot, and there's also ideas that I want to be told about, and concepts I want to understand, and the depth of the cult I really want to get into, and I didn't feel that with this book. I felt it was a little lacking in the grips of what the cult was actually there for. And it may have been that it wasn't even a cult, but I was told that it was a cult, so I read it as a cult, and it didn't work as a cult. So, I'm not 100% happy with it. I probably won't keep it on my shelves. It's fine. It's just not for me, and it just wasn't the right book for me. It's called a mashup between Margaret Atwood and Roald Dahl, writing style-wise. That's pretty accurate, but plot-wise, it is not. Because I find them a much more riveting plot people to write. Much more riveting authors to write. There we go. To read. This is Balikara's Jaswal's Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows. This is really out of my comfort zone. I was going to read Kiss Quotin', but I just wasn't in the mood for that kind of romance. It just wasn't in my brain sphere at the moment. I read one book that I'll talk about in a second where it was a messed up relationship, and I loved it so much, and I just wanted to leave it as it was, and I didn't want to dive into another relationship, so I just went with this. This was recommended to me by Rose from Print a Bookstore, so I kind of broke the rules a couple of times in this readathon. Although it was never specified that it had to be a BookTuber recommendation, this was just specifically not a BookTuber recommendation, and I haven't seen it discussed on BookTube, so we'll see. This one was interesting. So it's about Nikki, who is living in the Western world. She's near a Punjabi community, and she decides that she's going to try and speak or teach English to the Punjabi widows, or women, and then she gets there and it's all a bunch of widows and she's very surprised. And then one day she brings in a romance novels and the widows find it and they're like, we want to do this. This is what we want to write and learn. And she's like, oh dear. And they're like, what, you think we're widows and we can't know stuff? No, we know a lot. So it's got some sassiness to it. It's got some sex to it. It's got it's definitely got sexy times. Like, it's not shying away from that. I blushed a couple of times. I don't usually enjoy books about sex as a general thing. It's not that I don't enjoy books about sex, it's that I don't enjoy sex in books. It doesn't really fit for me, because I don't usually feel that sex scenes are written in a constructive way where it actually does things for the character. And in this situation, the characters were so wrapped up in the sex situations that it made sense and it fit. So I was happy with this. I enjoyed it. It was out of my comfort zone. I will keep it on my shelves. It wasn't a love for me, but it was fun. And I would recommend it. Then This Has Never Let Me Go by Kazuishi Guru. I, according to Goodreads, have read this already, but I have no memory of it. So, I read it again. This one, I went so far out of my way to find this cover, and it doesn't feel worth it at all. It's not that I didn't like the book, it was fine. I felt really disconnected and really separate from the book, though, and I feel like that might have been intentional. The whole book leads up to a pretty big spoiler, and I don't want to go into that, so I'll just say it's got that dystopian vibe, it's really character driven, and it has a lot of interesting intrigue to it that I really appreciated. So I liked it, and I'm gonna keep it. I just don't think that tracking down a special cover was really worth it. I think I could have been happy with any cover, and I wouldn't have really been too bothered, but, you know, it's pretty. It's pretty. So, I mean, I'm happy with it. I didn't love it. We need to talk about Kevin. Now, I had such high hopes for We Need to Talk About Kevin. Such high hopes. And those hopes were not met. And therefore, I rated it less than a 4. I feel like I rated it less than a 4 because I was disappointed, and it was about what I was hoping for rather than, I read it hoping for more rather than reading it for what it was, and I was really disappointed. But it was a good book. I might read it again with expectations of what it actually is, more so than what it actually was supposed to be in my head, and I might have a better experience. I thought it was fine. It's letters about a boy named Kevin who has done something bad. It was interesting, and it's pretty relevant to today. It's not a pointless book. I think you should probably read it. It's very relevant to the current gun conversation, but it wasn't really my book. It just wasn't my book. Then I read Sweet Pea. This is by CJ Scoose. I am really happy I read this, but In Bloom is not in the US yet. So I either have to wait for it to come out in the US or order it from the UK, and I don't know which to do. Left me on quite a cliffhanger. It is a Bridget Jones-esque serial killer book. I don't know how that works, but it did work, and it was darkly funny. It had some really weird comedy to it. It was really twisted, and I really liked the main character. Rianos, I think. You might pronounce that differently than me. I liked it, and it was a lot of fun, and I will read the sequel when I get my hands on it. Bridget Jones Meets American Psycho is how someone explained it. I think that's accurate. I've seen American Psycho. I haven't read it. I probably should read it. But yeah, I would say this was a good book and solid, and I gave it 4 stars, and I was really happy with it, and I had a lot of fun with it. If you like serial killer books, this is definitely good and fun. If you like dark comedies, this is a lot of fun. So I would recommend it. Now, I feel like this whole week would have felt less than, what's the word I'm looking for? Rewarding had I not read this book. So this book arrived in the Book of the Month box. I will do my haul with the Book of the Month box books soon. And this was my pick for April. And I knew I was going to buy it. I read Conversations with Friends. I didn't love it. But I knew I was still going to buy this. And I was just like, you know, it's probably going to be just like Conversation with Friends. Feel kind of distant. Feel a little privileged. Kind of drive me crazy. Not really my thing. But I'll try it because everyone's raving about it. And I'm sort of curious. So I dived in. And within the first 2 chapters, I was ready to just slap myself because I was so wrong that this was going to be just like Conversations with Friends. And I read this book really fast, and I loved every minute of it. And the hype is completely valid, and I would not have changed reading this book for anything. It was totally worth it. So far, it's my favorite book of the year. And I'm kind of mad at myself for that being the case, because I never thought that Normal People would be my favorite book of the year. I didn't think Sally Rooney was going to be a favorite book ever, but this is my favorite book of the year. And I am super stoked about it. It's going to be hard to knock this off of its spot. So, there's that. Alright, so those are all the books that I read during the recommendations readathon. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, click that subscribe button down below. I want to say thank you and love to my Patreons. You guys are wonderful. Thank you for supporting me. If you would like to support me, my Patreon will be linked in the doobly-doo. I will talk to you in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video.